Welcome to the 1 week till pitchers and catchers report edition of Sharing Sox. I'm duty geezer Leigh Allan. With me, my son and West Coast correspondent Will. And obviously not much going on. It's not like the Sox are in there. Will they get Alex Bregman? I don't know. Kind of situation. They've just got their usual dumpster diving over the course of the offseason. A lot of the prospect lists do them well. One has them as number 2 farm system in baseball. I think that's nuts. You actually have to have position players for that to count.
ESPN has them at number 2. Yeah.
Most of them have mid-range. I think Keith Law has them at 12. Logical kind of position. They've got a lot of good guys. The guys they got in that Garrett Crochet trade with Boston, there could be some pretty good players in there.
I think the Crochet trade actually went very, very well. I was actually looking at all the lists today. I looked up about 10 of the prospect lists, and I actually saw most of them have them in the top 5. A lot of 4s and 5s in there for the White Sox. I think I saw one, higher up, and then, of course, the 2 from ESPN that has them only behind the Dodgers. And actually, they predicted that the White Sox will jump to 1 as soon as Roki Sasaki is not considered a prospect, which will be opening day.
Yeah.
The idea that farm system is number 1 seems insane to me. It's better. I mean, it's obviously way, 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 way better than it was a year ago. I mean, a year ago, we were easily bottom 10, arguably bottom 5. And now, they're calling us potentially the number 1. I think for this farm system to be the number 1 in all of baseball, everybody has to pan out perfectly. That's not common in baseball. In fact, it would probably be the first time ever that a farm system ended up having everybody play to their ceiling value. But it's definitely a sign of hope for the future.
I think it is. And you look at the one that I see the raves about that I'm really encouraged about, because we have a lot of pitchers in the system. And pitchers, they may make it. They may have Tommy John surgery and be gone for 2 years. There may be a number of things, but a lot of starting pitchers, enough of them to be able to get 5 out of there by 2026, 2027, somewhere in there. I don't know if they're going to bring up Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith this season. Probably not at the beginning. Probably somewhere in there.
At some point.
I mean, somewhere in there, particularly Schultz.
They'll control service time for sure, but I definitely think you're going to see Schultz probably as soon as they can without it causing any future issues. The pitching looks great. I mean, the pitching prospects look really solid. Of course, it is 2025, so almost all of them are going to have Tommy John at some point. Unfortunately, that just seems to be the way it goes. But, if they can all get through just having one Tommy John, then there's a lot of hope there. Probably a couple of them won't have Tommy John at all, but most of them will. There's a lot to see in the potential of the pitchers in the farm system. What I don't see is a single person who does anything other than that.
Braden Montgomery gets excellent reviews, but he's never faced a professional pitch.
Right.
Even Keith Law, who is the lowest on the White Sox, really loves Braden Montgomery, not Colson. He don't like Colson at all. But Braden Montgomery loves five tools, everything great. And, of course, he's a right fielder, which the White Sox haven't had one for 10 years. They just pick a guy out of the stands to go out there. So to have a professional major league right fielder would be outstanding improvement on the team. But he's, let's say, never faced a professional pitch. He broke his ankle in the College World Series. They don't know how he's going to recover from that. It doesn't sound like the kind of injury you don't recover from. But, does he favor it for the next year? And who knows? But certainly he needs probably at least a year in the minors and probably a year and
Oh,
change or 2 years in the minors.
absolutely needs
He
more
played
than a
in the
year.
SEC. That's the highest level of college ball there is, but it's still a big step even to the low minors. So he's got some time to go. Colson Montgomery, it's not a question of will he make the major leagues, and he can probably hit in the major leagues. The question is, where does he play in the major leagues? I'll throw one
Yeah.
to you. Here we go. Next year, we do not tender Andrew Vaughn. And Colson Montgomery, mediocre shortstop. Problem is, everybody says he's not a shortstop. Goes to first base. All of a sudden, you got
Yeah.
for a first baseman, he's really good defensively for a first baseman. He doesn't need the kind of range you need at shortstop. He's 6'3", 6'4", so he's a nice big target for the rest of the infield, which Vaughn is not. I'd love to see that happen. And I wonder if he comes up, I mean, he's really talking like he wants to be the shortstop, and they're talking like we're going to start him. They don't. And I think if they really start him at shortstop, it's simply because they have nobody, just nobody. I looked at range factors for some of these guys who could go, like Brooks Baldwin is the most likely. Chase Meadroth, really bad as far as his range goes, and he also has a bad arm. I mean, a bad arm, great for you or me, but a 45 on the scouting, which means below major league average. You don't want a shortstop with a below average arm.
No, you really don't. You
Lenine
really
Sosa,
don't.
there's a reason they don't let him play shortstop. They shouldn't let him play anywhere. Jacob Amaya, very good defensively, but he hit, not only did he hit 170 something, but did you watch games where Amaya played? He was fun to watch in the field. He's a very good fielder,
Barely, yeah.
but boy, he just at the plate, just, 3 pitches and then he's gone, sits down again. Very grim. So, and then the utility guys, the super utility guys, Miguel Vargas and Josh Rojas. Vargas has never played shortstop in the majors, and Rojas
Vargas never played a game of shortstop for the
I looked it
Dodgers.
up. I was looking up to see what his range factor was, and he played second base and third base and outfield positions. I think even first base. Did not list. He was not listed on Baseball Reference as having played shortstop.
Well, that makes sense because you had Rojas, you had Betts, you had Lux, you had there were all sorts of okay shortstops for the Dodgers, so it makes sense that Vargas never made it over there.
And
Gosh,
Josh
I
Rojas
forgot.
last played shortstop in 2021. So there's got to be a reason the 3 teams he's played for since then did not put him at short. So those guys
Yeah,
are
I
great
mean,
utility guys at second, third, and maybe left field, but that's their limit.
so
Maybe right
basically,
field
what
and
you're going
pinch.
to end up with is the classic White Sox problem of the last 10 years, which is you're going to end up with a whole bunch of guys who can only play first or can only DH. I mean, there's no sign of a solid defense in the even somewhat near future. The
No,
only way defense would get better is if they make any sort of trades, which you can't do much. I mean, they're going to trade Luis Robert at some point, but it's not looking like you're going to get an amazing haul for Luis Robert at this point.
unless he's got 23 home runs by July.
And if you're not going to get a good haul for him, you might as well just keep him.
Well, this gets interesting on years. I did my last column. I asked a question. I had a poll at the end. I had, Paul, how many games do you think the Sox will win this year? And I think it was 81% said 100 or more. But I did it by divisions, and it was mostly 100 to 110 losses that they were looking at. Only a couple people said 120 or more. But the other thing I said was, what year do you think they will actually become competitive? And I listed 2025, 26, 27, 28, 29, then 2030 plus, and then a year after Jerry Reinsdorf dies. Now, as you would surmise, a year after Jerry Reinsdorf dies was the winter. only 40%. I would have expected more than that. But individual years that people picked, 2027 was a favorite. My own mind is 2028 would be good. Uh, 2027 was, it was close. 2027, 2028, 2030 plus, they were all close. But 2027 got, of any given year, got the most. That's a question that we now get with Luis Robert and actually with Andrew Benintendi, because you have team control of both through 2027. In Robert's case,
you're stuck with Benintendi. I mean,
I think Benintendi you could probably get rid of in 2027 if he's playing okay. Somebody will take him for 1 year, then I can take 3 years of him.
But why would he be playing okay? I mean, it's such a terrible contract. He is the worst outfielder in all of Major League Baseball statistically. He's the worst left fielder, and he's one of the worst overall outfielders in all of baseball. Do you know how much you have to suck to be the worst left fielder in Major League Baseball?
You mean in an organization that sticks people in left field because they can't move?
When you say organization, do you mean MLB?
I mean major leagues. I mean the major leagues.
Yeah, exactly. Left field is where you put the guy who you just have to have him in the field because you already have a DH who can hit better, but the guy kind of hits pretty well, so you need to put him out there. I mean, Benintendi doesn't even hit well, but he is the worst left fielder in baseball. He is the worst left fielder in baseball. It is hard to be the worst left fielder in baseball.
Particularly when 4 years ago, he had a Golden Glove. He just went downhill so fast. I realize the Golden Glove is a strange game.
Golden Glove in left field means that you'd be the worst center fielder in Major League Baseball, but it is definitely better. It is better to be a Gold Glove left fielder than it is to be any other left fielder. But to be the worst left fielder in baseball, you have to hope that somehow Benintendi is not on this team in 2027. If Benintendi is your starting left fielder in 2027, then the 2027 voters are horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. You have to hope by 2027 that guy's not even in the organization.
I think they're wrong anyway. But if that's the internal, now obviously the White Sox can't come out and go, well, we're going to really, really stink up the joint 2025 and 2026 because they're trying to sell tickets. They're hoping somebody comes to a baseball game on occasion. So at least the players will have somebody to wave to in the stands. But if internally they believe 2027 is the year that they should become competitive, I don't know that that's the case at all. They have no hope, but they must have some target within 3 years, because this will be coming up their third straight 100+ loss season. Very possible the next one as well, although maybe not. But at any rate, if it's 2027 that they have in their minds, if that's in Chris Getz's mind, then you get real picky about trading Luis Robert, because that's the last option year you have on Robert.
Yeah.
If 2028 is what you have in your mind, then you go, well, we'll get what we can get. You don't say that, but you get what you can get.
I think there's no rush to trade Luis Robert. I think if you get rid of him right now, you're going to get crap because he's been terrible. The only reason you'd get rid of him anytime soon is if he comes out blazing in April and May. And maybe it'll happen, but I don't see a world where if he comes out blazing, it's going to be early in the season. That seems highly unlikely. And in reality, contracts are so bloated right now for players that he's not on a bad deal. So he's kind of in the range of what you'd expect to pay for an okay outfielder and three-hitter.
Because I think the predictions that I saw from we talked about the prospect list, but they've also come out with their how many games is the team going to win and what are individuals going to do, the Steamer and the Zips. And he's the one guy on the whole team who comes in on Steamer. I think that's Fangraphs, right? Steamer. Uh, Above 2 in WAR, F4.
Yeah.
Uh, and 2 is what they consider the level that designates a major league regular. And the next was Mike Talkman, if I'm pronouncing it right, at 1.4. And then so on down the list. But Luis was at 3 something. Well, Luis is worth, if he's 3 something, he's worth every penny of his salary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing that the White Sox did, which seemed smart at the time, was they did lock up these guys. They locked up a lot of guys on very team-friendly contracts.
It's worked with Robert. It did not work, obviously, with Moncada, for example.
Right. Well, it hasn't worked with Robert, unfortunately.
It's worked some years with Robert. In 2023, it worked great with Robert.
Yeah, and there is potential that it will work with Robert. It's not a Moncada situation where he's so injured that it's unlikely he can ever get back to form, which is the case with Moncada. The back injuries for a third baseman, it's just they're always going to be there now. They're always going to be there.
That the Yankees took a look at. The Yankees were very interested. They need a third baseman. Healthy, he's one of the better third basemen out there, one of the top half dozen probably. But they took a look at his medical stuff and just no thanks. And he's had no offers that we know of. Certainly nothing that attracted him.
I mean, if he can get an offer, it's going to be really low. It's going to be really, really low. Yeah, I mean the hope for a guy like Moncada,
most of the White Sox exes now, other than the pitchers, have been traded along the way. But the ones out there free agenting, Tim, minor league contract with the Angels, Tim Anderson, which makes him equivalent to one of our favorite players of all time. Yolmer Sanchez also has a minor league contract with the Angels. Eloy Jimenez, minor league contract with the Rays. And they're just not considered worth much of anything.
No,
Nicky Lopez has a minor league contract.
And that's because they're not. I mean, honestly, if you had me put money on it right now, I'd say you're more likely to see Yolmer Sanchez in an Angel uniform next year than you are to see Tim Anderson. And these guys just fell off so hard and so fast. And a lot of it was injuries. With Anderson, I think there's just a lot going on in that noggin of his.
Tim, I read an interview with Tim. Must have been from California, because it was from the angle of the Angels interviewing the new guy. And he was talking about the off-field problems as they got him admitted. It got in my head. I was not concentrating the way I should be concentrating, blah, blah, blah. But another thing he said, and this is said over and over by ex-White Sox, was I'm glad to be with a team where everybody wants to win. Because where I was before, there were guys who didn't want to win as much as I did. And nobody ever names names.
I know.
Always, they don't want to win. Now, if you got to think of a guy who probably did not work very hard, I mean, Eloy is the first guy that comes to mind. But maybe that's because he smiles a lot. Maybe we're being totally unfair to him.
Yeah, he could have actually been working really hard and just was hurt all the time,
Yeah. And doesn't have the skills because he's so slow and defensively.
I mean, Tim Anderson's probably telling the truth there. I don't blame him for not naming names. If you have been
the same all the pitchers left last year. They were all going, we're glad to be out of this dysfunctional clubhouse, but they never said who was dysfunctioning.
Right, yeah, which, is a business move that you kind of have to make. And
sure. You may be teammates with the guy again.
I think if you're Tim Anderson, you've also been humbled by one of the most memed punches in the history of sports. So, yeah, you're not going out there looking to get decked at second base again if you ever make it back to the majors. But, yeah, I mean, the White Sox, the free agents are all getting swooped up on minor league deals. I'd be shocked if anyone goes for Moncada. And if they do, it's going to be a minor league deal. I'm sure they're holding out to try to get a low-level major league deal from somebody. As you know, if you've listened to this podcast, I'm a big Moncada guy. I love Yohan Moncada. When he is healthy, he is one of my favorite guys to watch in all of baseball. He can be electric when he's healthy, but I just don't think he's going to be healthy ever again. And
no, you mentioned back injuries at third baseman, and it's very often career ending.
yeah, I mean his only hope really is a DH situation somewhere where he can keep his back healthy enough to be effective at the plate. But I don't see a world where he's playing defense for a Major League Baseball team again. It's just too much of a gamble. Maybe if someone gets in a pickle, they'll sign him to a minimum deal halfway through the season, something like that. Otherwise, he's destined for a minor league deal. On that note, we should take our break. We'll come back and talk more about the beautiful future of the White Sox, but we should also talk about the rest of the league because things have happened in Major League Baseball this offseason. They just haven't really happened for the White Sox. So hang in there. We'll be right back on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. We, kind of dissected the near future of the White Sox here with apparently some people thinking they might be good in 2027, which I think is somewhere between delusion and insanity. I hope it's true because it's getting trying as a White Sox fan. Last year was almost fun because you were striving for this record. Obviously, it was a record that nobody really wants, but once we hit June or July, it became clear that this was the one thing to watch for White Sox baseball. We might get a repeat. We might go back to back.
And yeah, I just think it's just not that they're better. It may be a worse team, better manager, worse team, better all-round coaching, and they've got better research and whatnot going on.
Maybe
it's just hard to lose. There's a reason nobody had ever lost 121 games before. It's hard to do.
It's really hard to do.
So I don't think they can do that again. The idea, who was the Dakota came out and said they'd only lose 99. I think that's nuts. But you have to take, and then some, gung-ho fans are going, yeah, just 99, be all right. Dakota last year said they'd only lose 96. So you got to watch out for these season projections from the various outfits. I wish 538 still did it because I think they did the best. But these are computer runs. They toss things into the computer and they run 1,000 simulations, and this is where the average comes out. And it tends to always get squeezed because of that, because they got so many simulations. I think the same one only had the Dodgers winning 96 next year. Well, that's unlikely. So it just everything gets squeezed. They bring more toward the middle because you have so many manipulations of the numbers, and the numbers tend to just kind of cancel each other out and go toward the middle. But at any rate, one said 101, one said 99. I think Las Vegas is saying 111 losses.
I would go with Vegas on this, and I'd take the over. I think the idea that they would be under 100 losses, we can already just go ahead and say is wrong. You're talking about winning 63 or more games. Unless your simulation model had them only facing the number 3, 4, 5 starters in every series for the entire year,
and I don't see a world. Only playing the Rockies and the Marlins.
Right. I just don't see any scenario where the White Sox are coming out of this with 63 or more wins. I mean, that's just bonkers to me. 111 feels low. It does feel low because all you're doing next year is putting out mostly the same team, but with some worse guys. So I don't understand the math of getting 10 games better in that scenario. I'm not saying they're going to beat 121. I will say I think they absolutely can beat 121 next year. I think it's completely possible that this could be a 125 loss team. The thing about baseball is it's certainly the sport of all sports where you never actually know what's going to happen. We as White Sox fans, I feel like every season when we get to April, because all I do is gripe about them all year, and then we get to April or late March as it is now, and I think to myself, you know what? Maybe, maybe it's going to be all these minor league guys, and we're going to have a season that they're going to make movies about and 30 for 30 documentaries about, because a whole bunch of single A players played in Major League Baseball and they somehow won 94 games and went to the ALCS and lost in Game 7, and maybe that'll happen. But I think the world that they have fewer than 100 losses is just not based in any sort of reality.
I can't see that at all. I don't think they're going to challenge 120. I really think there's enough difference.
But you have to take away.
Of course, now this is talking about no injuries. Luis gets injured every year. So if Luis gets injured as always, then we're kind of going toward it, because he's the only major league player on the team.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. You've got arguably two-ish major league players who will be starting in the starting nine, and I'm calling Andrew Benintendi a major leaguer still. There's no reason at all he should be better than last year. There's no reason whatsoever he should be better than last year.
Except
Luis could possibly be better. I hope he's better, but he's going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt at some point, and whether that's real injury or whether that's I just don't feel like playing baseball right now, I don't know. But then you have to look at the pitching staff. You're taking out Garrett Crochet, which really was the only reason to watch a White Sox game last year.
Eric Fetty was another reason. Of course, he's long since gone.
Right, but yeah, so Fetty's gone. Crochet is gone. So your 1 and your 2 will be significantly worse than your 1 and your 2 from last year.
They all go together in my mind, but I think Steamer, the pitcher who will have the highest WAR is Davis Martin.
Davis Martin, who is a lovely human.
And I wrote about it. I said he would make a good team, a terrific number 5 starter.
I think he would make
the number 1 starter.
I think he would make a good team's terrific 6th starter in platoon with a number 5 who's slightly better. I don't even really think he's a solid 5 starter for Major League Baseball. Now, he might be next year. He could be better if he's a little better.
More time to recover from his Tommy John. So
yeah, if he's a little better next year, then he is a solid 5 for a Major League Baseball team. I just don't see a world where there's any statistical plausible reason to think that they would lose fewer games than they did last year. Who's better? Who's better than they were last year? Only things have gotten worse. The only way that they can be better is if, these guys who aren't Major League Baseball players really somehow are Major League Baseball players magically this year. And that's why I say it's going to take a Hollywood movie script level of improvement here, or a miracle of some sort for this to work out. I'm not saying they're going to lose 121, but I honestly would be shocked if they lose less than 115. I would be shocked, and I don't think it's unrealistic that they could lose 125 games.
Well, I think one of the reasons for fewer losses is that last year, 39 losses, or 36 losses, there were 1-12 against 3 of the other AL Central teams. Kansas City has improved. Kansas City's doing fine. They could do that again. Minnesota has just drifted through the offseason. They got this ownership problem. They got the TV contract problem. They're just flailing. Detroit they just signed Flaherty, re-signed Flaherty. So
and they're could sign Bregman. Could still sign Bregman.
Yeah, I mean, if Detroit gets Bregman, they could go 1-12 against Detroit again. But I don't think it's just 1-12 against the team is just so hard to do.
It's hard. It's really, really hard. It is. You're right. But I do think they will balance that out by losing even more games to other teams. Because Minnesota did not get better, but they signed Harrison Bader yesterday, and Harrison Bader's not great, but he would be the second best player on the White Sox. So they're picking up scrubs, and those scrubs are better than guys who are on the White Sox, and that's why I do agree that going 1-12 against any team is really, really hard. It's shocking that they did it with multiple teams last year, but the other teams have stayed the same or gotten better. So there's no statistical reason to assume, other than the sort of law of averages, that the White Sox will do better against the division. I don't expect 3 teams from the AL Central to go to the postseason again. I think some funky things were happening. And of course, the White Sox will be the thing that dictates whether or not 3 teams from the AL Central go again.
12 against them really helped them out.
If you are in the AL Central right now, you just got to be like, wow, this is great. We are in a rebuild, and yet we are still probably going to go to the postseason because we share a division with the Chicago White Sox. That is just such a sweet place to be. I mean, last season, before the season started, I can guarantee neither you or I said the Royals and the Tigers are both going to the postseason. We wouldn't have been shocked that Cleveland was going, but I don't think either of us would have thought that Kansas City and Detroit were going to go to the postseason.
Kansas City had lost 106 games the year before.
I know, and they're doing everything right.
They got 2 good, solid major league starting pitchers, who in turn recruited a good, solid major league closer. So their pitching staff was greatly improved, and Bobby Witt Jr., who was super before, became super, super, super. And if it hadn't been for a certain center fielder playing in New York City, would have been the MVP. But I mean, Kansas City really improved, and they've done a little bit this year again. And Detroit is at least not going to go backwards this year. Cleveland may. I don't know that they've.
I just don't see a world where the White Sox actually improve without a sort of generational talent influx like the Royals had with Bobby Witt. I mean, they got Bobby Witt. They went to Bobby Witt. They signed him to an extremely friendly extension, considering what Juan Soto got. I think Bobby Witt's going to make $600 million less dollars.
More than triple anything the White Sox would have done.
Of course. But they had the brains to sign him to that extension. They said, Bobby, what can we do? What do you want? And he said, I want to win. So they bring in Salvi Perez, and Salvi Perez says, go get Will Smith, because everybody loves Will Smith. So they get Will Smith, and then Will Smith calls all of these starters and says, hey, something special's going on over here with this Bobby Witt kid. We're building something. Those starters all come to the Royals. They built this team essentially on clubhouse vibes and faith in one veteran and one young superstar. And I mean, I think the Royals are going to be good for a while because of this mindset. I mean, their whole rebuild right there was, let's lock up the guy who we know is special. Let's get the input from our beloved veteran that is maybe the most beloved single player in a fan base. Based on just, attitude and community and those ideas. Let's make that our clubhouse. Let's make that this team, and let's build on that. And they turned it around. They went to the postseason after a 100+ loss season. It's crazy. And the White Sox are going to have some sort of generational talent come in, whether it's through the draft or through, making trades to pick up a prospect who ends up being that. But I just don't see anyone in the pipeline who's anywhere close to that kind of talent that you have with the Bobby Witt Jr. And then on Detroit's side of things, they kind of pieced around a guy like Tarek Skubal. And, that is a Cy Young, a year in, year out Cy Young candidate level pitcher. Better than Crochet, much better than Crochet overall. And I think will actually last longer in Major League Baseball. The White Sox have no design like either of these teams who have bounced back so quickly. There's no design. There's no sign that they're going to follow this sort of rebuild pattern. Yes, we're in a rebuild right now, but we're really not. We're in the first stages of preparing for a rebuild. You know, when you lose 121 games, you're not in a rebuild. You're in the cellar. You're in the basement, and you're just trying to figure out how to find you're in the dark trying to find the stairs that get you back up to the first floor. And the first floor is your rebuild. And I just don't think we're even close to that. It's really, really bleak. And you look around the rest of the league, and I just see so many teams doing such a better job at this than the White Sox. And, you know, it's tough, but it shouldn't be this tough. The White Sox, they're not rebuilding like a smart small market, and they're not actually a small market. They're not rebuilding like a smart mid-market, and they're not actually mid-market. They are a large market team that is doing nothing that a large market team should do to become successful. And that's why I think the most popular answer to your poll was the White Sox will be good a year after Reinsdorf dies. And I truly don't think anything is going to change until he gets rid of the team or he dies, whatever happens. It's bleak. It's bleak, man. It's really, really hard. I sit around and I think, why would anybody go to a game in 2025? Why would you go to a game, a White Sox game in 2025? As someone who doesn't go for the beer and the hot dogs, why would you go to a game in 2025?
I guess I won't go anywhere that puts a nickel in Jerry Reinsdorf's pocket, as you know. So, but presuming I can buy my ticket on the secondary market, eat lunch before the game or dinner before the game, and take the L, so I'm not putting in parking. So no money is involved here. I probably would like to see Noah Schultz first major league start.
Okay, so that's one game out of 81 games at the rate, at Rate Field. That's one game that you think you'd maybe like to go to in 2025. And that answer is actually better than most people will have. So I truly, unless you're dying for this, most people are going to say the s'mores milkshake. I mean, that's
the other thing.
The fact of the matter here.
They've added to go with the opening day almost sell out. It didn't sell out last year, but it came close. And the two Cubs games, which will sell out. There's going to be the unveiling of Mark Burley's statue.
Okay.
July 20th, something like that. And then that's one game. And the next game, you will get a bobblehead replica of the Mark Burley statue. So that's two straight games that they'll have pretty good crowds. Maybe so.
So the marketing team, the marketing and promotional giveaway team, are the only people there who are giving you any reason to go into that building. And That's never good. That is never, ever
it's not going to give
thing.
you consistent success.
No. And so I don't know why anyone would go. I don't know. Outside of It's a Beautiful Day, and tickets, I'm sure, will be almost free. If you can't find a way to go for free, I'm sure they'll be almost free after opening day. I think we'll see the lowest opening day prices we've maybe ever seen. It's real bleak. That is about all the time we have for this week. We'll end on that uplifting note about being a White Sox fan. I was hoping that at least come out with like a cool new alternate jersey or a cool new spring training.
They may do that yet. They've got time.
Well, they haven't come out with anything cool or new for spring training or batting practice. They're repeating the 2024 look I saw. So
maybe they'll bring back the shorts.
They don't even know how to sell merchandise. They're doing everything wrong over there. They're doing everything wrong.
They do fairly good promotional stuff on giveaways. They managed to get good giveaways. They give away some really nice things, some jackets.
They have high quality giveaways there. They do a lot fewer of them than a lot of teams, but the ones that they do, and they give away a lot fewer.
Very good ones. But the basic public relations, media relations, whatever of this team is about as horrible as the team is. I mean, yeah. I mean, they are what they are. It's an organization that is horrible from the top down, and there's a reason for that. That's the top. We all know that.
Yeah. Well, I won't say from the top all the way down, because I do feel like I have a pleasant experience with a lot of the vendors there when I go to games.
No, you're correct. You're correct. Very, very nice. And the parking guys really are efficient.
So the stadium operations side actually pretty pleasant at the rate, but most people aren't going to care about stadium operations.
It wasn't this past season, but it's either the year before that whoever was working the big scoreboard with all the information flowing through it was getting things wrong left. We were at the game. I'm thinking, what game are they watching? It'd be the wrong pitch, the wrong pitch speed, the wrong player at bat. It was just.
So that was an intern and learned the hard way. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off here?
No, well, pitchers and catchers next week. There's always hope at this point of the season, no matter what your team is or who your players are. There's always hope at this point. Starting next week, it starts.
True. Yeah, I will, like I do every year, go into the season assuming that in a year so improbable, the impossible will happen. To slightly misquote Vin Scully there, his famous Kirk Gibson home run call. And maybe the impossible will happen, and this White Sox team of lovable losers will find a way to band together, and I'll write the movie script, and you'll all enjoy a feature film about this someday. But that is all the time we have, and we will catch you next time right here on Sharing Sox.